Hello everybody, October 14th, 2022. We're going to take a look at Bitcoin's action. On Monday, we were in the area of extreme choppiness still. Who's tired of all this chop? Was the title of the video. And you know, the rest of the week made no exception to that. We got a nice big spike downwards and a nice big jump upwards. Now, that being said, we do have potentially a complication in the scenarios that I've gone over here, because the expectation for me was that we were going to, either get a bounce into the 19s or, even as high as 21, but in either case sub 18 is what I expected. Or it was possible, it doesn't bounce and just continues bleeding. So this is really what it did, just continued bleeding downwards. And I said at the time, that's fine as long as we can finally get 17.7 broken. And of course, it did not. It got to about 18.2 again and bounced hard from there. So the question is, do we have a truncated bottom? Meaning, bottom's already in basically, and instead of breaking 17.7, it got cut short and we're actually starting the new bull run now? Or is all of this still more chop? And so we're going to go over what each of those scenarios would mainly look like and try to figure it out. We don't have an answer right now, but we're going to take the clues the market gives us and try to figure it out. So we really don't have, off of this high, I said the bears, had really failed to put in a 5-wave move, a 5-wave impulse down and really take over. And that's still true. There's a possibility that we have 5 waves down in like a diagonal sort of situation here, but that's unreliable. It is possible, again, that this is a 5-wave move down, and it should have led us down into this area. That was the ideal area there to break that 17.7 low. But as I said, it could have truncated here because the action that we got off of that low was very, very strong. We saw an extreme bounce the rest of that day, and that was after bad news. We had a higher than expected CPI reading, inflation reading, and previously bad news like that would have caused a continuation downwards. And Bitcoin initially went down, but then had this strong move up after the bad news. And usually that, when you see that start happening, the bad news not being met with the selling pressure that we've seen in the past, that tends to indicate a bottom. Does that mean that this is the actual bottom now, or is it just a temporary bottom? That remains to be seen, but I think it's relatively safe to assume that we probably get another move up. I mean, usually you don't just see one move and then it just dies. It's possible, but I think it's a good bet that at a minimum this can turn into an ABC and we kind of test this upper area here anyway. So I'll go over that scenario as well. But it is possible that we have a new bull run starting here too at the truncated bottom. And it's still possible at this point that we get a lower low. So there's a lot of work to do from both bears and bulls. And realistically, trying to put emotions to the side, this is all still potentially part of just chop region. All right, so that's enough introduction. Let me just try to figure out exactly how I want to present this. I've been waiting for Y of 5 of C of 4 to complete. This move here into this green box is what I've been waiting for. We've not touched it yet. That always makes me a little bit nervous when we haven't quite touched that box. Because a lot of times that means, the move down is not completed and it actually will head down there. So that is just something to keep in the back of the mind, of course. Now, really, this action all through here is very, very choppy. And so if it were going to be part of a larger B wave, which is what I'm assuming this is. Initially I was thinking that's the B wave, and then we should proceed downwards to hit this box. That would be the C wave. And so, as I said, the question is that C wave done here, or do we still need to come down? And that's pretty much what we're trying to determine right now with how the next few days and weeks go as we proceed. So this, instead of this being ABC of B, it's possible this is all A, this is B, and we're making a new C wave up for B. That is a possibility. So this red box that I have on here is based on the fib extension from the bottom of A up to the top of what potentially is the new B, and down to the bottom there of that move. And let me just adjust that slightly. It's right here. Basically between 19.6 and 21.2 is sort of this danger zone where this could be the B wave playing out. If that is a B wave still, let's see, this would be A, B, C of B, you really would expect it to take the form of 5 waves. So I suppose that would be the possibility right there of this just being a straight up move and then death down. That's how we would count that, basically, as this is all A, this is B, and here's a 5 wave C. It doesn't really make sense to me because of how extended and long this is. You would really expect sort of a larger 5 wave move up, kind of take some more time with it, but it is within the realm of possibility that we are just done. We hit the bottom of that danger zone. It could just be done there. To complicate matters further, this could be the end of B here. This could still technically be a 1 and a 2 at this point, unless it goes higher. That could be a 1 and a 2, and then we move down further. Now, the one thing saying that's probably not the case is that this move does not look like 3 waves to me. I don't see a clear ABC up, and I would like to see that. So I'm assuming that's not what is happening, but I'm just kind of keeping that in the back of the mind there as well. I told you this was getting complicated. I apologize for all of this. Other possibilities would be that this is A, B, and C, and this is going to do a larger 5 wave move up and actually get through the danger zone, but then still die. Possible, although I find it unlikely. And realistically, if it breaks above this high at 22.7, that becomes very unlikely at that point. And then finally, this could, because of how choppy this is, instead of expecting a C wave, this might be a large W, X, and Y. If that's the case, then we get an A, B, and a C up instead into that danger zone area. So that would be probably, more along the lines of what I'm expecting. So let me try to make this a little bit more clear. This is going to be, if that's the B wave, if that just dies from here, that would be how I'm considering this. So let me put that in red. I think that's the least likely scenario there. And then a C wave down within Y of 5, of C of 4. These are the large degree moves here. Alternately, probably more likely, if this is still part of corrective action, would be that this is W, X, and Y. Of a B wave before C wave down. So let me put that back on here as alternate A, B, C. That's slightly more likely. Okay, and in that scenario, it means we're getting another move up here into the danger zone. Let's assume for a moment the bottom is in temporarily here for this potential B wave ABC, and that would give us a target box up here of this area. So that's kind of overlapping with that danger zone. There's the danger zone for this to be smaller degree ABC of Y of that larger B. So that is a possibility as well. And then the final possibility, if I go down to the 5-minute chart, I can show you it is not the most clear impulse in the world, but let me delete this fib. If you look at this as maybe a 1 and a 2, somewhere in here, maybe a 3, maybe a 4, maybe a 5, it is potentially valid, because we hit this ideal area, which is the 1, 2, 3, 6 to 1, 3, 8, 2 for the 5th wave, if we draw a fib backwards from 3 down to 2. So it did technically do what it needed to do to show 5 waves. But the main thing that I want to say here is that this, regardless of whether or not it's an impulse, it does not look like 3. I mean, there's really not, like, this is really not long enough for that to be 3 waves realistically. This more looks like some sort of 5-wave move to me. And so that leaves me expecting higher, at least in the short term, for that, sort of 21 area anyway. So the final then scenario would be the bullish scenario, which I don't know how likely it is at this point. But what we would need to see happen for the bulls to prove the bottom is in, and this is a truncated bottom, we would need to see this. This would be our first wave. There's 5 waves up there. This would be our second wave here, which is possible. It looks like, that could be an ABC. That's 3 waves that we have down right now, so it could be a second wave. And if you go down micro, it actually looks like there's 5 waves there within that C wave, so that makes sense. So there's our 1 and our 2, and then we'd need to see a 3, ideally up to about 22, then a 4 down to hold about 21, and a 5 up. That would be a larger degree impulse up to about 22.9. 22.4 would be the minimum, but I'd prefer 22.9. And so I'm going to put this on as an alternate scenario. Let's make it green because the bulls are green. That would be what the bulls need to do in order to prove to me that this is a truncated bottom rather than just another correction before we go down further. Let me go down to this 5-minute one more time to show you what I'm talking about down here in this correction. First off, this initial move down right here, I don't see any way for that to be 5 waves. Like, not at all. So that leaves me saying that's probably an A wave, because A waves can be pretty amorphous. So I'm going to call that an A wave. This is obviously 3 waves here. There's our B wave. And then we have potentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down right there to make a C wave. And so that could potentially be A, B, C for that second wave that is within the realm of possibility. There is another possibility here. Anywhere in this green box is fine for this to be a wave 2. So this could all be part of a larger A. We could get a bounce for a B and still head down a little further. This green box is going to remain support until we start heading up into this 20K area, 20 plus area. So it is possible that it doesn't immediately go up to that area. We could be testing this area for a little bit longer here. Certainly a possibility. So just keep that in mind, and then we would have to kind of draw this downwards a little bit wherever the new bottom is found. And then one last thing here, let's look at how I got this green box. This is based on the low that we struck, which is here, the high that we struck there. Second wave ideally goes somewhere between the 382 and the 618. So you can see we got about the 0.5. And so this is very, very much within the realm of possibility for that to be a second wave, so that's fine. If we stretch down even to the 764 is okay, about 18.6. If we start going below that, I'm going to say that is a warning sign, below that. So there's a little yellow line. Below 18.6 is warning that the bulls maybe are not going to be able to push us up. Below the 886 is invalidation of this. So that's the red line right there. So below 18.4, and we're heading down to new lows again. Okay, so that's not super helpful, I suppose, because it is higher than the bottom there, but if you wanted to take a long now, it's a fairly decent risk reward. You could grab along here, stop below 18.4, and target somewhere in this area up here. There's definitely an outsized reward versus the risk that you take. So it wouldn't be a terrible thing. The only problem is I do expect, even if this does go down further, I'm anticipating a bottom somewhere in that sort of 16, 17 area, if we haven't bottomed already. And so, the question is it really worth it to stop out at 18.4 if we're just going to rebuy at like 17.4? It's not a huge difference there. So that's just, you got to use your own risk management strategy and what you're comfortable with, try to figure it out how you want to play that. If you're scalping with high leverage, I would say 18.4 is the place you want to stop if you're in longs. If you're just in accumulation mode, not a bad place to accumulate some here, and if you need to, you accumulate down a little bit lower. End result, I still believe as long as we're above 15.7, this is forming a larger macro bottom. My opinion hasn't changed on that. So unless 15.7 breaks, we should be good to continue upwards at some point once all of this corrective action is done. And it's just been very stubborn, giving us a reasonable end to this correction. So we've got a path for the bulls to follow, potentially green path right there. Need to see 5 waves to at least 22.4. Okay, so if you haven't watched any of the rest of the video, just listen to this. Bulls need to do 5 waves to at least 22.4. Ideally, 22.9 would be even better. I think if we don't get that, we're still likely to get another rally here, at least into this area, which is basically 20, let's just call it 20K, 20.2K, up to 21.4. If we get a rally that only gets there and then starts failing and starts breaking supports, once we're there, we can draw, some supports higher up. If it starts breaking those supports, then we know, okay, that's probably just more correction, and so we want to get out. Then that's fine. We can get out of buys and rebuy lower down. That would work out as well. And then the last unlikely scenario, but still possible, is that this is just done already and continues downwards from here. It is a possibility. I don't see strong evidence of it yet. Let me show you what I would consider strong evidence. Once again, down on the 5-minute. Again, this first wave is pretty pathetic, but to be fair, that first wave is pathetic as well. So, but if this does 1, 2, 3, 4, gives us a 5th wave down, looks clearly like 5 waves, that to me would be a warning sign that, okay, maybe the bulls are not going to be able to figure their stuff out here. And any correction upwards at that point would be probably an opportunity to get out, especially if we do 5 waves down that go below that 18.6 region there. That would be a really big warning sign. So all of that being said, personally, I have rebought a pretty decent portion. I do still have cash, but I've rebought a decent portion of Bitcoin and some of the key alts that I've been watching in this area, because I pretty much don't see a scenario where I lose, right? If this continues downwards, it's telling me it's 5 waves. I get out at break even or even slightly in profit on a bounce. That's a win, right? If it holds support here and heads up to this area, okay, that's cool. At that time, I can draw supports higher up and at a minimum set a break-even stop here. If it breaks down, that means we're in that scenario where we're going down further. I stop out break-even or potentially higher up because we'll have a higher support line as well. Maybe stop in slight profit. Or best case scenario, the bulls actually do this and I ride that all the way up and then start taking some profits here, or potentially just hold on to these buys, because If it does do that, then that's a really strong indication the bottom actually is in. And I'll be holding for much, much higher. So that's my strategy. Worst case scenario is this doesn't give us any warning and it just crashes down really hard. But even in that scenario, this is where I would be anticipating a bottom anyway. So am I going to be sad about putting money in here? Probably not. I'll just put the rest of my cash in lower down, do some dollar cost averaging, and at a minimum be able to get out on a bounce, but more likely be able to ride that up in the next segment of the bull run. All right. These videos keep getting longer and longer because this action is just absolutely atrocious. It's ridiculous. There's so many options out there for what is going to happen. So I apologize for the complexity. But hopefully I summarized it up decently at the end there on what my strategy is and what I believe we're looking at in the future here. And we just got to see now which one of these scenarios takes over. Is the weekend going to give us an answer? I don't know. The weekends have been pretty dead recently. So we'll see if we can actually get some action this weekend or not to give us an answer. But hopefully Monday night, we'll have some sort of idea about where we're going, which scenario is playing out. Because Monday being a trading day, we should get some sort of useful action that we can draw some conclusions from. So you guys have a great weekend. I will talk to you all on Monday.